His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Svagracharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha London Ishwara Ki Jai. Shri Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Shishi Goni Tai Ki Jai. Govardhanande. All glories to their Simul devotees. All glories to their Simul devotees. All glories to their Simul devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yes, so devotees, we are going to do a seminar over the next 4 days, today and the following 3 days, about the demons in Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes and the anarthas they represent. It's a seminar. I first did this seminar in, I think, 93. So, it's a while ago, 30 years or so. It's an interesting seminar from 2 points of view. One is that we're discussing Krishna and his pastimes and his qualities which are reflected in his pastimes and like this, and this is always something nice and enriching and enlivening in Krishna consciousness. And then to consider this idea that these different demons that Krishna in most cases killed, not all, but we'll talk about that in a moment, but these demons who Krishna encountered, at least according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in a couple of his books, 2 of his books actually, he discusses those demons in terms of each one of them representing a particular anartha, which we may or will, but we certainly may encounter in our efforts to progress in Krishna consciousness. Anartha, well, artha means, you could say, something useful, basically. Like so many Sanskrit words, artha can be taken in different ways, but at least particularly in this context, shall we say, artha we can take to mean something useful, and anartha means something useless, or even worse than just useless, but something detrimental in our efforts in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So artha something useful, anartha something useless or detrimental. Just like, those of you who are from financial backgrounds, or, basically anyone would understand, if you got no money, you got no money. And that's a problem. But if you're in debt, it's worse than having no money. At least if you've just got no money, you've got 0. But if you're in debt, you've got minus however much. So anartha means like that it's something dangerous, and something really dangerous in your Krishna consciousness, which may have real detrimental effects, and ultimately, practically any one of these anarthas could actually drag someone right down and out of Krishna consciousness. Really, they're all quite capable of that if we give them a sort of a good enough chance to do their thing on us. So like I just mentioned, the whole concept is described by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That's where the idea comes from, of these demons representing these different anarthas But it is something which Srila Prabhupada touched on, you could say. It's not like simply Bhaktivinoda Thakur and that's it. But definitely Srila Prabhupada touched on these things sometimes in certain respects. So it's very interesting, it's very constructive in that sense. It can help us because, with respect, I think we all have an anartha or two, or a few anarthas. Anyone have an anartha before? Anyway, you know what I mean. And we've all taken to Krishna consciousness with the idea, ultimately, of going back to Godhead, or you could say, achieving love for Krishna, or manifesting our love for Krishna, which is already there within our hearts, but it's covered over and all these obstacles and things getting in the way. Srila Prabhupada, in giving a class, you can look it up in the database if you have access to that. Prabhupada gave one class, to my knowledge, on Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, verses 13 and 14. If you study Bhagavad Gita, you would know that from verse 13 in chapter 12, Lord Krishna discusses different qualities of a devotee, or that a devotee may have to different degrees, some or however many of them. And each verse, Lord Krishna says that if a devotee, if someone is like this and this and this, is, humble and not offensive and not attached, and, there's a whole lot. I think it's about 50 something different qualities. Then each verse, Lord Krishna says, such a devotee is very dear to me. And at the end, verse 20, Lord Krishna gives a few more qualities, and such a devotee is very, very dear to me, like especially dear. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada gave one class, at least, which appears to have been recorded, and the way Prabhupada begins the class, it's really interesting, and at least in my experience, studying Srila Prabhupada's writings and what he said, it's something I haven't really come across, as I recall, like the perspective that Prabhupada is suggesting or presenting. So Srila Prabhupada notes that here we have all these qualities and they're very nice and Krishna appreciates them. And Prabhupada says, yes, what is this about? This is about how will Krishna love me? How will Krishna love me? I would say a lot more often we hear, how will I develop love for Krishna? Which, anyway, that's much more common than like the specific idea. How will Krishna love me? How will I become, how can I become such a person that Krishna will love me or become attracted to me and want my association? And ultimately Krishna will think that I must have this devotee with me. I must have. Like Krishna may think, I cannot live without this devotee. That's really the idea. in that sense, the idea of us going back to Godhead, which, at least on the surface indicates that we will go, we will do, we will achieve like that. But this idea Prabhupada suggests in that class, and like I said, you can look it up and see how Prabhupada puts it. But basically Prabhupada says, how will Krishna love me? In other words, our going back to Godhead depends on whether Krishna wants us to come or not, or whether Krishna thinks that you just sort of carry on until you're more ready. But so in that sense, it is just an idea, sort of a perspective, and there can be many. So the idea would be we have to become such a person that Krishna wants us. I think we've all had experience of feeling that we want some other person in our lives and to develop a relationship with another person, but we have to do it with Krishna. And then Krishna will take us back to Godhead. Yeah. So these anarthas, of course, they're nasty. The demons generally, they're nasty. They're very unpleasant chappies, and we just can really do without their association directly or indirectly. We can do without their input. We can do without their influence. So part of the seminar there then is just a few suggestions what we can do about overcoming the influences of these demons or these anarthas, the anarthas they represent. So that's just a couple of words by way of introduction. But let me say another couple of words further. That amongst these anarthas, there are two particular categories, and they differ in terms, really, you could say, of intensity, and they differ in terms of who killed, either Krishna or Balaram, who killed the particular demon involved. Yeah. And anyway, so there's variation in that sense. So, there are, let me just check, 21 demons that Krishna, and in two cases Balaram, so 19 in regard to Krishna, 2 in regards to Balaram, who were killed by the Lord. And so the two who were killed by Lord Balaram, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that the anarthas that these two represent are more serious, you could say, or more they have broader sort of context in which they attack you. The two are Dhenukasura and then Pralambasura. Dhenukasura, of course, is the donkey demon. And sometimes when we do the seminar, I've done it many, many times, and sometimes when we do the seminar as a test for the devotees, I've already given it away, but we ask the devotees, so how did Krishna kill Dhenukasura? And devotees often volunteer this way and that. Krishna killed Dhenukasura, but of course it was Lord Balaram. Devakasura, in essence, represents the mode of ignorance in a broad sense. Mode of ignorance is multifaceted in all sorts of ways. Mode of ignorance includes attachment to sleeping. It also includes sort of tendencies towards insanity in the different types or degrees of insanity. Prabhupada, when he wrote or spoke about who is mad, Prabhupada made the point that everyone is mad. It's just a question of degree. Some are not so mad that they are incapable of functioning in society. Some are sort of, in between, and others just not capable of functioning as, sort of regular human beings, and they have to be placed in institutions and kept there. So, anyway, mode of ignorance. There are different ways it manifests. And one, of course, is just ignorance, the propensity to forget or to make mistakes. These are all part of or connected with ignorance. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says of this, and Pralambasura basically represents the mode of passion. He says that these are two very big anarthas, and actually they're kind of like umbrella concepts or umbrella terms that other of the anarthas, which demons killed by Krishna represent. Yeah. But they're big ones. And therefore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that in regards to these two anarthas, the devotee has to make like specific endeavors, like develop specific programs to deal with these anarthas. Whereas the anarthas that the demons killed by Krishna represent, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, on the whole, or in many cases, I don't think always, but in many cases, they just become cleansed away just in the process of your ongoing practice of Krishna consciousness. And you may not have to go out of your way to really do something or not do something to deal with them. Shri Radha Nanda Vishra Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Shri Gaura Sahib Shri Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Yeah, interesting. So, those are a couple of further points. Another point, just to mention, is that generally we title this seminar the demons. Well, we just say the demons in Krishna's Vrindavan Leela and others they represent. And we talk about how Krishna killed all these demons. Well, Balaram killed 2 of them, as we mentioned. And otherwise, not all the demons were killed. There was a few of them who were not killed by Krishna. And there's a couple of them, at least, who were not really demons. I mean, like, generally speaking, they were not demons. Like in the Govardhan Leela, it's Lord Indra, he's a demigod. And he's a very important demigod, actually. He's after Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. He's the next most powerful and important of the demigods. And generally, he's a bit of a character. Sometimes he really, does some stupid things, actually. But at heart, he is a devotee. And indeed, Krishna corrected him in the Govardhan Leela, and he came back to being, as much as he's capable, like a good devotee. And of course, another one is Lord Brahma, who is definitely not a demon. I mean, he's the head of our sampradaya. So, we can't look on him as being a demon. But there were a couple of instances in which Lord Brahma just became bewildered. Really by Krishna's arrangement, but he definitely became quite bewildered. In terms of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela, this is when he kidnapped the calves and the cowherd boys. I mean, there are other incidents, at least the main other incident was when he became attracted to his daughter, like sexually attracted to his daughter, but that was before. It's not part of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. So, yeah, and then there's Kaliya, who Krishna didn't kill. He just banished him from Vrindavan. And actually Kaliya became a devotee, in fact. Yeah, he became a devotee. But still Krishna banished him. That's interesting. That someone, a devotee, may do wrong things and, be due to be chastised or receive some strong disciplinary action, and then become reformed and actually become like a proper devotee again. But still, there's room for, in certain cases, sort of excluding them from certain aspects of devotional life. Anyway, we'll go through all these things as we go. That's a little background information. So let me just see. I guess what we should do now is we should go through the list. Well, let me mention another thing. And Prabhupada talks about this. I forget which exact verse, but it's in the 13th chapter of the 10th canto, the last chapter. Prabhupada translated and commented on. Prabhupada makes the point that Krishna, particularly from the time he started herding the calves and then the cows, but even before that to some degree, but particularly when he was going out all day, every day, Krishna would meet many demons. Here we've mentioned 21, but it's not that there was just 21, and that's all there was. Prabhupada makes the point that every day, particularly when Krishna was going out, literally every day, a demon would come around midday or early afternoon sort of time and attack every day. Every day. And we're talking about, Krishna started herding the calves when he was 3. He had just turned 3. And Krishna left Vrindavan when we have the actual day he left. But he was, 10 years and about 9 months or so, Krishna was. So it means, if he started herding the cows when he had just turned 3, the calves, it was actually the Gopastani day, just after he'd turned 3. So, we're talking about 7 years or thereabouts of going out every day. And Krishna, at least from what we understand, Krishna did not take a day off, take a break from being Krishna conscious or something like that. He didn't do that. It was seven days a week Krishna was doing these things. Means, so I know you could calculate 7 years times 365, whatever it is. It's well over 2,000 days. And every day there was at least 2. So one would come around midday, slightly shortly after midday, and attack, and there would be a fight, and the cowherd boys would be encouraging Krishna, "Go, Krishna!" And Krishna would kill the demon. And then one of the boys, every day, once this demon is dead, one of the boys would say, "Time for lunch." That was the sign. Prabhupada explains it was the arrangement of Yoga Maya to interrupt the pastimes at lunchtime, so the very early afternoon. So then they'd all sit down and take lunch. Otherwise, Prabhupada explains they wouldn't have stopped for lunch because they're having too much fun with Krishna. It's just too wonderful playing with Krishna. So this was the arrangement of Yoga Maya so they could take lunch. Then, later on in the afternoon, 4:30, maybe 5 or something, a second demon would come. And same thing would happen. Big fight, and Krishna kills the demon practically every time. And then someone says, "Time to go home." And Prabhupada makes the point, if that interruption had not occurred, they wouldn't have gone home. And, just an interesting little point when it comes to the stealing of the cowherd boys and the calves. One of our acharyas makes the point that, the cowherd boys and calves who were stolen, they were Maya cowherd boys and calves. They were not the real ones. And those Maya ones, they would come home every day. But the real ones didn't come home. They just carried on 24/7 playing for a year. Because there was no real stimulus to stop their pastimes. You get the idea there? Yeah. So they were just, for a whole year, just wandering around Vrajamandala, having their pastimes and their games, and by the arrangement of Krishna, by the arrangement of Yoga Maya, even though Nanda Maharaj was going out every day herding the cows, he never bumped into them. By the arrangement of Yoga Maya, if Nanda Maharaj is going this way, they're going that way. So anyway, this would happen twice a day. And there were occasions, like with Vyomasura. Vyomasura came early in the morning. It was breakfast time. Generally only 2 would come, but occasionally 3 would come. So how many demons is that? That's an awful lot. We got, 365 times 7, whatever that is. A couple of 2,000 or 3,000 or something. Days times 2 demons a day. We got a good 5,000 demons, or 5,110. Okay. and occasionally 3, so it's a bit more also. So, but here we've got 21. It's just a selection, a very sort of pointed, specific type of selection out of the so many of these demons who were special. They were special. Right. Okay, so let us, devotees, get into it. I'm going to, I can email to anyone or just make available the whole list, but I'll just read through it now. And those of you who want to take notes, you can take notes. And I give a lot of seminars regularly over the last many years. And, we've done it, those of us who give seminars, we've done research into seminars and how they work on the people, like the audience, the people who are taking the seminar. Here's a bit of interesting information for you. People who are taking the seminars, the students, if they simply sit and listen, then on average, they will retain around 7% of what they hear. This is what they say. Them. You've heard of them. The ones who say things. So they say, but these are people who've really analyzed and, professionally analyzed how seminars work. So yeah, if people just sit there and listen, it's not bad. It could never be bad. But generally, they would retain 7%. People who simply take notes will retain, on average, around 50%. How's that? It's a really big difference. And those who take notes and use the notes, go back over the notes and back over them and back over them, and like in their preaching, they try to use the information. So they say that those people retain, on average, about 93%. So anyway, you can do with that information what you like, but I just mentioned it. So right, here we go, devotees. First demon, who's the first demon? Who's the first demon? Putana, yes. Putana. We'll talk about Putana in a few minutes once we get through this list. Putana represents, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the pseudo-guru. The pseudo-guru. And I'll go into detail. I'll just mention that now. The pseudo-guru. And of course, there can be different types of pseudo-gurus. Then the second demon, this is a little more tricky, a little bit. Who was the second demon? Shakatasura, the cart demon, who represents a few things actually, but the tendency to remain attached to bad habits. Yeah, attractions, but being attached to bad habits, to attractions is a bad habit. So you could just say, the tendency to be attached to bad habits. Yeah, like anti-Krishna conscious type habits. The third demon, any authors who might have been the third demon? Trinavarta is the third demon. He's the whirlwind demon, and he represents, interesting anartha, being attached to material scholarship, which may blind you to Krishna consciousness, partially or even completely. Then the fourth demon, or sort of demons, were, I'll just tell you, Nalakuvara and Manigriva. So we're talking about the Damodar Leela, which, is a pretty deep Leela. So the deliverance, and I mean, obviously they're another couple who were not killed. Yeah. So the deliverance of Nalakura and Manigriva, who represent the pride coming from high birth and, like that, wealth, that sort of thing. Those people who Queen Kunti says, they cannot call out from the heart with sincerity, cannot call out to the Lord with that feeling of like, I need your help, because they don't feel they need. I mean, they may not be opposed to Krishna's help if Krishna would like to give some, but it's not they feel that I must have it, and if I don't, sure, it's going to be a really serious problem. So now, number 5 is Vatsasura, the calf demon, who basically represents anarthas to do with bringing children up in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, I mean, anarthas for parents. And others, who may tend to think that children are sort of cuddly little toys you may sort of play around with from time to time. Yeah, that's a surah. Another's connected with bringing children up in Krishna consciousness. Then, where are we? Number 6. Number 6 is Bakasura, the stork demon. In Krishna book, he's referred to as a duck, but it's more, he's a stork actually. Long-legged, semi-aquatic bird. Yeah, he's a stork. And he represents hypocrisy, like being two-faced. Yeah, hypocrisy, duplicity, that sort of thing. Then the next one is Agasura, who was a snake demon. He represents, to some degree enviousness, but it's more like to the degree of cruelty. Cruelty is a manifestation of enviousness. Yeah. Psychological cruelty, or what to speak of physical cruelty. Yeah, so really speaking, cruelty, violence to others, causing trouble to others out of envy. Then, next number 8 is, we call it the Brahma Vimohana Leela, Lord Brahma stealing the cowherd boys and calves. And there's an interesting anartha there, which is thinking that the Lord's Aishvarya feature is superior to his Madhurya feature. You understand what I mean by that? Aishvarya, his powerful, regal manifestation. Basically like Lord Narayan, like he's God. So you better bow down, mister, or else. Yeah. So that's Aishvarya, opulence. The Lord, thinking that the Lord in his manifestation of opulence and power is more important than his feature in Madhurya, means sweetness. So you could say, Krishna, the Lord in Vaikuntha, is superior to the Lord in Goloka. That's a way of looking at it. Yeah, and that's what happened to Lord Brahma. He was thinking, look, who's this little boy? Who does he think he is? And how could these adults be so stupid to think he's important? Right, so number 9 is Dhenukasura, who we mentioned represents essentially the mode of ignorance in different ways. Right, and Dhenukasura, of course, is in the form of a donkey. Then number 10 is Kaliya, who, of course, was also not killed. In fact, he became a devotee. Kaliya represents, well, it's also enviousness, but more in the sense of poisoning the hearts of devotees with poisonous talk. Yeah, Kaliya. Number 11 is the first forest fire. There were 2. So the first one represents discord amongst Vaishnavas. I mean, in a broad sense, including discord between different groups of Vaishnavas and also just individuals. Then the next one, number 12, is Pralambasura, who we already mentioned. He was killed, like Dhenukasura, by Lord Balaram, and he basically represents the mode of passion, lusty inclinations, enjoyment and prestige and so on. Then, devotees, number 13 is the second forest fire, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says represents the influence of atheism. You know, it's not impossible that it can happen even with devotees. There can be some influence of some elements or aspects of atheism. I mean, how about, you know, in a subtle sense, questioning. If things don't work out in our service, we may question Krishna. Krishna, what are you doing? I'm your devotee. You're meant to help me be successful. Anyway, okay. 14 is correcting the Brahmins. And again, they were also not killed. The Brahmins who were performing sacrifice, you remember, their wives were nice devotees. So that those Brahmins became corrected by Krishna. And this represents pride in your position in Varnashram. I am born in a Brahmin family. That sort of idea. And therefore, I am better than you. And let's see, number 15, is overcoming the pride of Lord Indra. That's the Govardhan Leela. Lord Indra, focusing on Lord Indra, and it represents the tendency to be attached to demigod worship, which, particularly, but not only, but particularly amongst devotees from Hindu backgrounds, it can really be a big thing, actually. And even amongst some devotees from non-Hindu backgrounds. Interesting phenomenon. Yeah, okay, that's basically the idea. The number 16 is Nanda Maharaj stolen by Varuna. Nanda Maharaj stolen by Varuna. And again, Varuna was not killed. Nobody was killed there. And the anartha is, some would find this interesting, thinking that your Krishna consciousness can be enhanced by taking intoxication. Haribol. We've had a few cases like that. Then number 17 is Nanda Maharaj delivered from the snake. And it represents impersonalism. In the case of some of these anarthas, you can see how the particular demon or person involved has that actual anartha. And they really represent the anartha directly in themselves. In other cases, it's not really like that, but we just take what Bhaktivinoda Thakur said. So then number 18 is Shankachuda, and Shankachuda represents trying to enjoy under the plea of devotion. In other words, how to enjoy life by doing devotional service. Yeah, how to get material enjoyment. Then number 19 is Aristasura, and Aristasura represents false, like invented religions. False religions. Being influenced by false religions. Then number 20, Keshi. Keshi represents the pride of thinking, I'm a great devotee. I'm a great devotee, even I'm a great spiritual master. Good for me. And finally, number 21 is Vyomasura, who represents anarthas which arise from associating with rascals. That can include like criminals. It can include people who put themselves forward as avatars. There are many types of rascals around. So there you go, devotees. There's the list. Those of you who wrote them down, good on you. And we'll make all this information available. Right, so now let's just really get into it. So demon number 1 was Putana. Let's just have a look here. Putana. Let's say a few words about Putana. Putana represents the pseudo-guru. We mentioned that. Pseudo-guru, there are different possible manifestations of the principle of pseudo-guru. Pseudo-guru can be just a person who presents themselves as being a guru or is presented by others as being a guru, but isn't. Yeah, and, there's plenty of them. Srila Prabhupada makes the point. I forget exactly where it's from, but it's somewhere, I think, it's either the Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, that being a guru or being taken by innocent, foolish people to be a guru can be a very sort of, profitable type of occupation. And therefore, you tend to get quite a few in India, pseudo-gurus. You actually get a lot of them. In fact, you get an amazing number of them. And Srila Prabhupada there, in one of those places, Prabhupada says that, therefore, because it's so profitable, for those who have the charisma and the expertise, therefore, it tends to be a very competitive field. Those of you who work, you would know about competition in the workplace. Yeah, so it's like that. Therefore, there are many pseudo-gurus, but they don't all have the charisma and the expertise to gather followers. Because, without gathering followers, you can't make a profit. So Prabhupada says, therefore, in some places in India, on every street corner, you'll find an unemployed, or avatar even sometimes. You'll definitely find unemployed pseudo-gurus. They just couldn't break through and make a profit. Yeah. So that's one type of pseudo-guru. Then the other type is the mind. The mind is perhaps, particularly for those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, generally, Hare Krishna, but not always, it's not so common, it's definitely not so common that devotees get distracted from following like a real guru, like particularly Srila Prabhupada, by somehow getting attracted to someone else. And particularly, someone who's, it's one thing if it's someone from the sort of the Vaishnav realm, but it's another thing if it's just someone from the Hindu realm, without mentioning any names, but that now deceased gentleman who had like a Jimi Hendrix hairdo. Anyway, I didn't mention his name. And there may be a few even. Yeah, and he's deceased now. But the mind generally for devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness, the mind is much more dangerous as a pseudo-guru than some misleader who's preaching some bogus philosophy or something along those lines. So, Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, in order to show mercy to his devotees, Krishna sucks the life out of Putana's breast to protect his own innocent ecstasy, which has arisen within the young devotees' hearts. Let me just mention Putana's background. Many of you would be aware because, this whole subject has become fairly well known in ISKCON. I mean, we should do a book about it, actually. But in her previous life, there are two options offered. One is from Brahmavaivarta Purana, which, it's Purana. It's Purana in the mode of passion, but it's still Purana. So, it has a certain type of, sort of solidness and value and authenticity to it. So Brahmavaivarta Purana says, in her last life, in her previous life, Putana was Ratnamala, who was the younger sister of Bali Maharaj. But Gargasamhita, which is, it's there somewhere in the world of Vedic literature, and we've heard it said by knowledgeable devotees that Bhaktivinoda Thakur really appreciated Gargasamhita. Gargasamhita says that Ratnamala was the daughter of Bali Maharaj. So, in some of these cases, you find there are different options. So there's a case. But anyway, one way or the other, it appears she was a close relative of Bali Maharaj. And when Lord Vamana came in, you all know the story of Lord Vamana. So when Lord Vamana came into the assembly there of Bali Maharaj, then Ratnamala, whether she's the sister, young sister or daughter, she's a young, like a girl, not really like a young woman, but she's a girl. And, girls play with dolls, right? Ladies, anyway.
Yes.
It's all right. It's okay. Boys play with teddy bears. So, she's young, but her motherly tendencies are arising strongly. And she saw this beautiful little boy. Vamana's like 5 years old, just a small boy. And he's dressed as more or less he's dressed as a sannyasi. He's dressed like a real sadhu. He's even got a danda, some sort of brahmachari danda, because in some circles brahmacharis have dandas. And he comes in just looking really saintly and really sweet. And so Ratnamala thought, what a beautiful little boy. Oh gosh, I would like to have him as my son. But then Lord Vamana did his pastime with Bali Maharaj and taking back the universe, all of that. And Ratnamala witnessed that. And she became really disturbed. And she thought, all right, maybe I'll have him as my son. But if I do, I'll kill him. And then in her next life, she was born as Putana. And you know the story. You know the story of Putana. How she came, and she was a real, a monster. She was gigantic. She was, how many kilometers tall? I forget exactly, but we're talking about a good several kilometers tall. And she was in the category of witch, known as Categorizing. It's a traditional form of witch in India, particularly in Gujarat. Any Gujaratis here? Categorizing. Tame Gujarati che. Right? Okay, it's all right. Doesn't apply to you then. But they fly around on branches and do witchcraft on people. And, there are stories, which I will not repeat because they're just stories that you never know, of devotees in Mayapur, because there's a whole mystical substructure in Mayapur. Devotees meeting Categories and being taken away by Categories. And then brought back by the Categories. We won't go into it too much. Remote areas of northwestern parts of India is basically Gujarat, or maybe like the Sindh area. So, I won't go into the story in great detail, but a little bit. She is a witch, so she has the power to transform her physical form. She's not like current day witches who they just can't do things like that. Maybe produce some ashes in some cases, if you know what I mean, or small things like that, but not transform your body from what size was she? Anyway, it's here somewhere. But, several kilometers tall and looking like some real monster. Actually, before I go any further, there is a falastuti. Falastuti means a verse which explains the benefit or blessing you get by studying usually a particular pastime. So the Bhagavatam, and you must know if there's a falastuti in Bhagavatam, it is real. And it says, any person who hears with faith and devotion about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Putana, and who thus invests his hearing in such childhood pastimes of Krishna, certainly attains attachment for Govinda, the Supreme Original Person. That's an important blessing, isn't it? So anyway, Putana now, she makes a living by killing children, by sucking their blood. Haribol. That's how she makes a living. So she is arguably a type of forerunner of doctors who do abortions. Must be. She would kill boys, girls, anyone for a price. That was how she made a living. So, but now she transformed herself into a really beautiful girl. Not just beautiful, but like very saintly girl. So, interesting, not just like some sort of foxy lady who can bewilder the minds of foolish men, but very sweet also, like a demigoddess. And they thought that maybe she's Lakshmi when she came. So she came. Krishna, Prabhupada says, Krishna was 3 months old. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. Different places you hear different ages. Prabhupada says he was 3 months old. And Prabhupada makes a very interesting point that some people say that you can do austerities and things like that and become God. And so some people say that Krishna did that. Duryodhana said, Duryodhana said Krishna had become powerful with mystic powers because he had done austerities. So some say that you can become God. Prabhupada makes the point that Krishna was only 3 months old. He was not old enough to do austerities. So he couldn't have become God. He must have already been God. There you go. That's an interesting little idea. So then she came and offered him her breast to suck. You know, that was common in Indian society, particularly in those days. Even nowadays it goes on, that the ladies in the village, some of them, they come and breastfeed the children of other ladies in the village. Yeah. And children are breastfed, you know, until like it's time for them to go to school. In fact, I knew one boy who was breastfed until he was 10. And it's very beneficial, particularly for boys, in that, you know, boys will be boys. But the tendency to become attracted and like too attracted to the opposite sex is really reduced if boys are breastfed for some time. You know, not just for a few months or something like that, but actually for a good few years. That it helps them sort of mature in such ways that those lower desires for women's bodies are reduced quite substantially. So anyway, then Krishna closed his eyes. There are 4 reasons suggested why. One reason he just didn't want to see Putana's face because he knew she's a killer of children. He didn't want to see the face of such a person. Others say that because he was dictating a message to her, that, you know, I am going to kill you, but it's okay. Don't panic. Something like that. Yeah. So he was giving her assurance by closing his eyes. Others say that it's because this is the first demon he has to kill, and it's a woman, and killing women is against the rules. Women are not meant to be even punished, what to speak of killed, under practically any circumstances. So therefore he closed his eyes sort of out of embarrassment. And others say simply because he took her as a nurse, because now she's acting like a nurse. And Prabhupada says it is a fact. He took her as a nurse. So they didn't stop her coming in. Yashoda was there, and Rohini, and so on. She went into Mother Yashoda's private quarters. This unknown woman just appears out of nowhere and goes into where Krishna is. But she looked so saintly and nice, they thought, no problem. She's not going to cause any trouble. So then, she offered Krishna her breast. Krishna sucked out the poison and her life. And as she was dying, she cried out, please leave me, suck my breast no longer. She cried loudly again and again, throwing her arms and legs around in panic. And Krishna also started kicking her to punish her and to give her some mercy too. So then, she collapsed on the ground, and her body, devotees, fasten your seatbelts. Prabhupada says her body was 12 miles long. Means, 18 kilometers or 19. Really big. And anyway, so then, like I say, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they cut up her body, and burnt it. And it took days or even weeks because it was just so huge. But because she had been killed by Krishna, she was completely purified. Even her body was purified. So when her body was burnt, there was aromatic smoke just filling the air. I don't know if you've ever been in a place where they grow sugarcane, really a lot of sugarcane, and they burn the cane before they cut it. But for like kilometers around, it's just this incredible aroma, powerful aroma, beautiful smell. So there was this beautiful smell. Her body was fragrant like a guru. A guru is like the original incense. It's fragrant wood. It more or less doesn't exist any longer. But highly fragrant wood, more fragrant than sandalwood. So let me just conclude this by reading what Brahma-Vaivarta Purana says. Suddenly leaving that gigantic body, Putana manifested a spiritual body. Then came a chariot from Goloka Vrindavan, a chariot of precious jewels, a chariot decorated with 10,000 white chamaras and 10,000 mirrors, a chariot whose passengers were many effulgent associates of the Lord, a chariot splendid with fine cloth pure as fire, a chariot decorated with jeweled domes, wonderful with colorful designs, a chariot beautiful with 100 wheels, and splendid with the light of many jewels. The associates of the Lord placed Putana in her spiritual body on the chariot and took her to the realm of Goloka, the highest place in the spiritual world. Gazing at this wonder, the cowherd men and women became filled with wonder. When Kamsa heard of it, he also became filled with wonder. Because it's there even in the Bhagavatam, Putana went to Goloka, and she is there now, and she is a Daitri, like a nanny. She's a nanny in Goloka Vrindavan. And when you nice devotees, particularly those of you who are doing book distribution, and those of you who are worshipping the deities also, anyway, any of you very sincere devotees, when you go to Goloka Vrindavan, you know what may happen. You may meet one lady who asks you, where are you from? London. Oh, rather London, Israel. Yeah. And she may say, well, previously I was Putana, but welcome to Goloka Vrindavan. I'm not joking, really. It may happen. It definitely could happen. So that's the story of Putana, devotees. And we have 5 minutes left. Tomorrow, 5:30, am I right? We'll continue. And, we'll move on. We want to try our best to get through all the demons. We'll do some serious demon killing. So we'll go through a bit quicker. Anyone have any comments or questions so far? Yes, Mataji.
Which book from Bhaktivinoda Thakur can you read about these anarthas?
Yeah. Chaitanya Shikshamrita and Krishna Samhita. Briefly, let us go. Yeah. Anyone else? Because you know what we were told? That the devotees in London are very intelligent and thoughtful and have many questions. Yes.
talking about how Ratamala, so because she has this desire, she becomes Putana. At the end, it was a blessing because she was going to be meant to be killed by the Lord and go back to Loka Vrindavan. So just by having that desire of, of becoming mother and the same killer of the Lord, she gets this blessing.
That's correct.
So why does she, many people can have a desire of being mother of the Lord, but it doesn't mean they're going to get that. Maybe because she was like in the family of Prahlad Maharaj, because Prahlad Maharaj is the grandfather of Bali Maharaj, she was able to get that blessing.
Well, that's a possibility. It's not something which is really mentioned. One thing which is mentioned is in the Bhagavatam, if I can find it, 3rd canto, chapter 2, verse 23, famous verse. You might know it. Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam, jikamsaya pai adapya sadvi, lebe gatim daitri uchitam taton yam, kim vadayalum sharanam vrajema. It's Uddhava lamenting after the dependence of Krishna, after the disappearance of Krishna. Alas, how can I find someone to take shelter of now that Krishna's gone? He was so merciful. He gave the position of mother to Putana, although she was unfaithful and prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. So Prabhupada gives nice purport. Here's an example of the extreme mercy of the Lord, even to his enemy. It is said that a noble man or woman accepts the good qualities of a person of doubtful character, just as one accepts nectar from a stock of poison. So then Prabhupada says, he was given poison by Putana when she tried to kill him. And because she was a demon, she couldn't know he's the Supreme Lord, even though he's playing the part of a baby. So she didn't understand this is God. No, she was in demoniac state of mind. But still he was God. Yeah, so Prabhupada says, Lord Krishna accepted the motherhood of Putana because she pretended to be an affectionate mother, allowing Krishna to suck her breast. The Lord accepts the least qualification of the living entity and awards him the highest reward. That is the standard of his character. Therefore, who but the Lord can be the ultimate shelter? So there's no need to sort of try and figure it out. Was it due to Prahlad Maharaj or... it's not impossible that there was some element there. But really what we should take is that was Krishna's mercy. And Krishna is that merciful. And what did she do to get the mercy? Well, when she was in the previous life, we said she had that motherly attraction, not knowing that he's God at all. He was some beautiful little boy. But now, as Putana, she comes, and Krishna was lying in a cradle. And so she had to come and look over the top, and there's Krishna down there. And she saw Krishna, and sort of momentarily when she saw Krishna, she thought, what a beautiful little baby. There was a sort of a flash of motherly feeling for Krishna. And Krishna accepted that and ignored, not completely because he killed her, but when he killed her, he ignored the demoniac side. So, Krishna is extremely merciful, actually. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaj, I was just wondering, because when you were giving the summary of demons earlier on, you were mentioning good briefing. Obviously, you'll get into more detail in the coming days. But you were mentioning that the two demons killed by Balaram require a special effort, whereas the demons killed by Krishna, that's more or less dealt with in our daily process of devotional service. But then as you were going through the list of demons killed, including the ones killed by Krishna, and I was hearing some of the anarthas that represented discord amongst devotees, spreading poison, devotees listen to their minds, not following their spiritual master, which is the pseudo-guru. I'm wondering kind of what goes wrong and how can these things be rectified, or will that just be revealed as we go along?
Yeah. Well, you know, in this case, really the thing to do, in simple terms, and it's basically the thing to do, is to take shelter of the actual guru or gurus, beginning with Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. And then, you know, because when Krishna is a very personal person. So if we do things the way he likes, then he, you know, he gives input. He really gives input. So, you know, in this sense of spiritual master, if we deal with the subject of spiritual master as Krishna likes, then he'll give us the intelligence to really take shelter of the real guru or gurus, because there's also, you know, Diksha Gurus, Siksha Gurus, Prabhupada's founder Acharya, and Siksha Guru. So like that. So yeah, but in essence that is what we should do. Like Trinavarta is coming up. He's the whirlwind demon who through material knowledge clouds our appreciation of spiritual knowledge. So we should really, the answer there is really study Prabhupada's books. You know, just, I mean, from my own point of view, I'm having an interesting experience. I've read the Bhagavatam some number of times, but now I'm teaching Bhakti Vaibhava. I'm up to the 4th canto, and you know, it's every single verse and purport, everything. And wow, what an experience it is. That what Prabhupada is giving. I mean, there's always been an appreciation. But now through studying it very carefully in detail for the last few months, wow, it's been eye-opening for me after all these years and having read it a few times and so on. So, yeah. So, but in simple terms, dealing with the pseudo-guru problem, either the possibility of becoming distracted by a person who's not really the right one, or distracted by the mind, and you know, the mind can be a real monster, that the answer is, the essence of the answer, put it that way, is to really take shelter of the actual guru or gurus. Yeah. How's that?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, Martin, just in terms of what you were saying about the experience you're having reading the Bhagavatam as you're studying Bhakti Vaibhava, and answer to the other part of my question. I'm understanding that although the anarthas represented by the demons killed by Krishna should go away naturally by our practice of devotional service, it's clear that perhaps our practice of devotional service isn't deep enough.
Yeah.
And that's why these anarthas appear.
It's not. It's definitely, and we're not really suggesting that we don't need to worry about those anarthas because they're just going to go away. Yeah. I mean, it'll happen, but we also need to make some effort. But particularly with those two, one really needs to make a very specific, focused effort. Taking shelter, like Thakur says, because Balaram, the spiritual master, represents Balaram. So make a special effort by very consciously taking shelter of the spiritual master. Yeah. But if you've got a tendency towards cruelty, just as an example, like you're from a sort of a street fighting background or something like that, which, there are definitely devotees like that. And so you may be more easily prompted than the average devotee to get angry and possibly even get physical with another devotee. I mean, definitely these things have happened. So what should you do if you're in such a situation? Someone, committed the deadly offense of stealing your samosa, Krishna, and now you're feeling like you want to sort him out, as we would say in South Africa, where our temple is. Anyway, they say, to hit a person, they say, give him a what happened. Give him a what happened. Well, what happened? Yeah, you want to do that. But you're feeling, this is meant to be cleansed away by just my ongoing devotional service. And I shouldn't have to make some special effort. So if I feel like giving him a what happened, I should do it, because otherwise it would be artificially repressing myself and not allowing the process to work. But no, you should stop yourself. You're not that sort of person in my experience, but we definitely have had or do have. So yeah, if you see that, and and you will see, you definitely should see, that you have this anartha, that anartha, and so on, then you should definitely take some action. Yeah. Now, it's after 9. We should stop, I suppose. Up to me. Well, let's see what the devotees say. Anyone else got a comment, question, criticism, complaint, or anything? Feel free. You know what you know what they say. The only silly question is the one that is not asked. I'm sure you've heard that before, but it's true. Go ahead, Prabhu.
One may have anarthas, an anartha, which you can maybe deal with easily in terms of not acting upon it, but in terms of subtle with the mind, it may be more difficult to remove it.
Say that again, I didn't quite catch it.
One may have an anartha,
okay,
and he may be able not to act upon it.
We may not be able to act on it.
Upon it, yeah.
Upon it, against
but
it.
In his mind, knows.
In his mind, he's trying to control himself.
No, the anartha is still there. And basically, the question is, how can one be able to remove it completely, even out of his mind?
Okay. Are you French? Okay, not a problem. Bien. In Russian Creole, we will say bien bon. Okay. Anarthas, well, old habits die hard. That's really true. Old soldiers die hard. You know, there's an interesting little Prabhupada story, if we've got a little time, where Prabhupada's on an aeroplane and in first class, and they're in row one. And in those days, you know, they showed movies, but there's just like a big screen right in front of row one, and there's the movie. So Prabhupada's in row one, and so the screen is just a couple of meters away, something like that. And it was a war movie, World War II. I don't know if you ever heard of David Niven, a British war movie hero. If you hadn't heard of him, you didn't miss anything, don't worry. You don't need to Google him. But David Niven was the hero in the war movie. And he's going up a hill, and the enemy are shooting at him down the hill. And Prabhupada's sitting there. And it's not like he's watching the movie, but, you know, he's sort of glancing or occasionally looking, because it's pretty hard not to see it. You know, you've got to look at something. So anyway, Prabhupada's sort of gazing at it a bit every now and then. There's David Niven going up, and then he gets shot. He goes down, but he gets up again, and then he's off again, going up the hill. And Prabhupada saw that, and then he gets shot again, and Prabhupada saw it. But David Niven gets up and starts going again. And Prabhupada dozed off, just briefly dozed off, but he woke up again like 30 seconds later, and he woke up and looked up. There's David Niven, and he's still going up the hill, and he gets shot again. And Prabhupada, in a very sort of cool and nonchalant way, like uninterested way, said to his assistant, "Oh, not dead yet." So, old habits die hard, like old soldiers die hard. So the thing is, you know, like we mentioned just now, if we see there's an anartha, even if it's one of the ones which, you know, the idea is there, it gets cleansed away by your devotional activities. But you see it's there, and, you know, it's a problem for you. So you should make some effort, but sometimes it's not easy. You make an effort, but the anartha hangs on. I mean, they really hang on they're pretty expert at hanging on. So of course we must continue making effort as much as we're able, but, you know, then we come to a very important aspect of Krishna consciousness, which is prayer. You know, when you can't, you're trying your best as far as you can see. You're actually doing your best. But, you know, it's not working. What can you do? You definitely can't give up. But then you have to take shelter of prayer. So then, yes, pray to Krishna. Pray to Krishna, pray to the spiritual master, pray to Prabhupada, pray to Lord Balaram, pray. You know, the gopis would pray to the trees and the animals, which, you know, we're not there. But at least we can pray to Lord Nrsingadev and, you know, like this, pray to these transcendental personalities, along with making an effort. And, you know, if we do with whatever sincerity we have at our command, then at the very least we should see that something positive happens. Yeah. Particularly if we carry on like that and work at it, we'll see that things become more positive. Because prayer is an essential part of Krishna consciousness, and it is for a reason. I mean, there are different types of prayers. Some are just to glorify the Lord, like Brahma Samhita, basically, We're glorifying the Lord, but there are other prayers, the please help me types of prayers. And we have to, along with making an effort, we have to get into the practice and develop a practice of offering meaningful and relevant prayers, relevant to me and where I'm at and what I'm up against, and whatever sort of positiveness is there in your own practice. Maybe you like chanting, or, well, how's this? Maybe you like prasadam. It's difficult not to. So, yeah, thanking the Lord for giving me the mercy that I have a taste for prasadam. Because some people don't like prasadam. They're rare, but they exist. Yeah. So, appeal to the Lord for mercy. Offer gratitude to the Lord for whatever mercy we've received or we're receiving. And like this, and wonders will happen. Yeah. We'll definitely go beyond the point that we've reached just by our own effort and working hard. Although we must make our effort and we must work hard. Yeah, but we'll go beyond that, and we'll see that we're going beyond that through prayer and appreciation of the Lord, because He likes it. He likes it when the devotees pray to Him, and He likes it when devotees recognize that, my Lord, without you, I just can't really do more. Is that okay?
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Very well. All right, devotees. I think that's it for today. See you at 5:30 tomorrow. And then Arti is at 7, I suppose.